So I've exhausted my questions. We wanted to give some of you guys in the audience an opportunity to ask some questions. Is there anyone out there? We got my man Lamar. We need a mic. And if you got a question, could you stand up? We got one person standing up there. You got a mic for Lamar?
Go ahead.
How about this?
So when you made it to LA, like how did you get stage time?
How did I what?
Get stage time, like get the camera time.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I started in acting class, right? Like I started going to acting class in 2007, and between 2007 and 2012, I studied with like 5 different teachers, and so the first teacher that I ever had when I left LA in 2010 to go back to Alaska, I came back to LA in late 2011 or 12, and I wanted to get back in class with my first teacher, so I went to see him. And he was no longer teaching. He taught for 36 years. He retired, but he was managing. And so he said, well, we should sit down and take a meeting. And I had no credits, no acting experience. And he remembered me from class, and he thought, like he started pumping me up, gassing me up with all these ideas, like, oh, you're going to make it big. I see you walking down the red carpet. This is how it's going to go. And he's been right with everything so far. So he's kind of a visionary. But that's, like it just started with an audition here and there. Like in 2011 and 12, I probably had 8 auditions total, right? Like, so they were very far and few in between. And at that point, like I wasn't even as prepared as I could have been or should have been. And so I didn't book any roles. And then one day I had an epiphany, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm missing out on home. Like I'm here in LA, but I'm missing out on things at home. A lot of times, we growing up as kids, we always think like, okay, I need to escape from my community because I see these drugs, I see these alcohol, or I see the violence or whatever, what have you. We see these reasons to escape from that environment. And I think that, that's wrong. That's a wrong idea because that stuff exists everywhere, right? And so it was like, so for me, the home is like, that's a place that I think I want to get back to. And so getting opportunities, it's they were far and few in between, and I felt like I'm sacrificing being at home for this. Like what? Like am I wasting my life? And my home isn't a place that I saw as a place that I need to escape from. If I was there, I would be a better fisherman. I would be a better hunter. I would be a better mechanic. I would probably be doing something for the kids there. Like all these things that I think about, like I could be doing to improve my community and improve myself. But I don't get to do those because I'm here. So if I'm going to be here, then I better work at it. And so I just stuck with it, man, and I gave myself a timeline. I said, if it doesn't work out in 2 years, I'm out. And a year and a half later, I booked Magnificent Seven. So, yeah.
Martin, thank you for coming to the land of the Lumbee. I want to ask you, what village were you from in Alaska? And did you go to Head Start or Early Head Start as a child?
Did I get an early Head Start?
Did you go to Early Head Start or Head Start as a child?
Yeah, I went to Head Start there. I mean, like Yakutat is the name of the community. So if you look on the map of Alaska, it's straight down from the Alaska-Canada border, right at the top of the Southeast Panhandle, right on the coast.
I know it very well. I was the federal program specialist for Alaska for 3 years for your Head Start program, and they gave me the name Raven from your tribes, from your villages. You've talked about some of the sadness of Indian country. What do you see as the greatest challenge for us in Indian country, and how would you advise us to face that challenge?
Our greatest I can't say what the greatest challenge is. I can only speak on the challenges that I see. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I don't see, like I'm not much of a politician, so I don't get into the politics too much. But I know that needs work. Also, what I look at is what I can affect, the change that I can affect. So I work with youth, and so when I think about our youth, I think about the environment they're growing up in. And a lot of times we grow up in poverty. I was poor as a kid. Like we were poor, like really poor. And And there was times when we had, the power would go out, and we had 3-4 days of candles, and we're heating the house with the propane out of the stove. That's how poor we were. But I never felt deprived of anything. So I think it's important to let your kids, whatever your situation in life is, if you're dirt poor, if you're filthy rich, these kids have to feel safe. They have to feel like they're not being deprived of anything, and you can do that by encouraging them, and believe them. When they tell you, I'm going to do this, believe them. Like when I had crazy dreams and I talked to my mentors about I want to be an actor, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, they're like, whoa, I don't know if that's such a good idea. You ought to think about going to school, or I don't know if that's that's not such a good idea, son. Like things like that. I grew up hearing that, and I ignored it because, but not every kid ignores that, right? So you can't tell a kid he can't do something, one. And two, I think when you interact with them and nurture them and listen to them and hear their stories and believe their stories, even if they're made up, a kid needs that, because it gives them a lot of, one of the things about living in a poverty, a lot of times you're not just in poverty, but you're in a poverty of dreams. These kids don't know how to dream. They're not allowed to dream, and they're not encouraged to. So I think that, and even for us as adults, you're always encouraged to be a good worker or a good student or a good politician or a good this or good that. You're never encouraged to just be a good person, right? Just encourage others to be a good person. Encourage yourself to be a good person. I think that, and think about what you say to each other, because our relationships, we're tribes, right? And we live in a tribal reality. So you have to live with the people that are around you. And I think that when we're as one, we're stronger, And when we work together, that's how we become one. So I think that's what we can do. We can work with each other and work on our individual wellness and on how we treat each other. And I think that takes us so far,
Thank you.
Thank you for attending tonight and speaking with us, and thank you for sharing your stories. And I'm so excited you're going to meet Jim Thornton. How do you effectively balance walking in both worlds, going from the big screen to going home? How do you know when it's time to go back home?
How do I know when it's time to go back home?
Yeah, how do you balance?
How do I
life?
balance
How do you
that?
balance living in both worlds? I heard you
Yeah,
speak
yeah,
from
yeah.
your native tongue. How
Well,
do you
it's-
balance that?
It's one world with many dimensions, right? We always hear that we live in two worlds. No, it's one world. It's one world with many dimensions. And I think that, I don't have to be this here and be that there, right? I'm me wherever I go. And so, so, and home for me, that's my life source. So I go home to push the reset button to give me perspective on where I'm living at, what I'm doing, and life itself. Yakutat is such a quiet place. It gives you a chance to reflect on everything. But it's right now what I'm trying to do, I can't live there, and so the home for me is a web. It's like a spider web, right? It's both home and it's a trap. You're comfortable there, but it's a trap. So until I can go back and live there, I go back as much as I can and visit. And that's about 3 or 4 times a year. And I stay for a week to 2 weeks at a time. And that just helps me refresh everything, So I have a more clear idea of who I am. Because you get sucked into that world in Hollywood and the LA and stuff, and, it's different, and I don't want to get used to, I don't want that to become normalcy for me, right? So that's it. Yeah.
So you've done a lot of roles, of course. So what would you say was the most challenging role that you've done?
The most challenging role? Wow, I think Magnificent Seven was pretty challenging, just because of the amount of work I put into it. I kind of isolated myself for a few months, it was just laser-like focus every day, But even Wind River, I was in 3 scenes in that movie, and that was a tough one for me because I prepared for a month, So but I think right now, I think the Jim Thorpe thing is going to be the toughest one. You know, I really think so. Just because of the amount of physical work that goes into it. And there's a lot of emotional stuff in the story too. So, you know, he had a very interesting, complex life. And to try to be a conduit for that story to be told through and improve my body to where it needs to be at, like, that's a challenge that I'm finally accepting. And now I'm getting into the work. And I've been training for about the last month, and I've been sore for a whole month. Like, you know, so we'll see, man. Ask me that again in a year from now.
I just want to say thank you for coming. The work I've seen you in has been absolutely amazing. You have played native people instead of characters, and that's awesome. Absolutely amazing. Two things. If you ever feel like you want to dabble in the comic book world, there's a comic called Scout, DC Vertigo. Look it up. It's a real raw look into native life on a reservation, and it mixes in real history with fiction. There's stuff like Leonard Peltier's involved in it. He's a character in the comics, amazing. Or if you want to get some superpower stuff, Marvel's Red Wolf is amazing. But what I want to talk to you about is kind of funny, because my little nephew over here and his long hair, heard this wild, crazy story on NPR that Antoine talked about with you having longer hair and then you showing up to the set one day with shorter hair. Like, is there any truth to that? And did you really almost lose your job because of that?
Did I, what was that last part?
He talks about how he almost, like, didn't want you for the role because he wanted you because of your long hair, and his son tells this crazy story about him, like, loving natives with mohawks.
Yeah.
Like, is there any truth to this story?
A little bit. But no, thank you for the compliment, man. And I like your comic book idea. They shot they try to make Scalped. They shot a pilot for it, didn't get picked up. It would have been cool. But Red Wolf is cool. There's some really cool Marvel characters that are native, so hopefully we get a chance at that. But Fuqua, that's my guy, man. Actually he fought for me for that part, because I think the producers wanted to go with they had another choice, but he fought for me for that part. And but that was one of the things I think, you know, the hair. You see the pictures of me online with the hair blown in the wind, and people like to romanticize it, and you know, so you kind of objectify it, and which is fine, you know, it's whatever. But you know, when he saw the picture with the mohawk, because I had a mohawk, and he was like, "Oh, that's the one right there." That's the one. And he was like, "What do you think about that?" Because they had me fit. They went and spent like $10,000 on a wig. They took the shape of my head, took a mold of it, sewed hairs into this wig, and had a real wig. And they put like this strip of latex that looked like skin underneath the wig, so it looked like a hair part. Everything looked so real. And I'm like, wow. But it itched so bad. And I remember I went and seen Antoine. He was like, he's looking at me. He's like, "Looks good, champ." And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "You don't like the wig?" And I was like, "Nah." "You shouldn't have cut your hair." And then he was like, "Okay, well, what do you think about the mohawk?" I was like, "I love it. Let's do it." He said, "All right, we'll see if I can work it out." And we did. So, yeah, man.
Chuan skena he wagachine di gene gire Disney wagachine di gene na tue rakuisachia giante. My name is Kay, a Little Turtle, and I just want to say, Yahweh, thank you for coming over here to Lumbee Country. It's an honor to have you here. I actually work for the tribe as one of their cultural enrichment coordinators, and I just missed you today. I just left right when you got there. But the question that I have for you is, what do you think are some of the biggest issues that Indian country are facing today, and what might be some solutions to those issues? I know a lot of times we see it, of course, all over social media. It's hard at times to get our voice heard because, of course, we're the minority of minorities. And so that's also something I would like to hear you talk about, is how can we strengthen our voice as Ekwahentwe, as indigenous people, around these centralized issues, and get a bigger voice and a seat at that table. Because, of course, a popular saying around here we understand is that if you're not at the table, then, of course, you're on the menu. And a lot of indigenous people, have suffered from that. We actually, have a unique history as far as suffering with that, because, we had termination language put to us back in 1956 with the Lumbee Act, going through that termination era. And so we understand quite too well how easy it is to be on the menu, so to speak. So.
No, Niawan. Yeah, I think, that kind of alludes to the question this gentleman asked earlier. What can we do to get heard? I think, networking and building, and working together. Like if we're so small and we're divided, then nobody's ever going to hear us. But if we support, like people who just want to dream big, or people who are doing good work in the community, or, I think that every role is important in the community. Like whether you're a janitor or a doctor or a lawyer or a student or somebody who works at a convenience store, your life matters. And we should treat everybody with the same respect. And I think that when we work together, to help others, like dream big, I think that it creates this, like I said, we live in a poverty of dreams. We have to get out of that first, right? So when you lift others up, like I think there could, I've traveled around and seen different communities and traveled to different clubs and whatnot. What I look at, I see these kids and I think, man, they could do what I'm doing. There could be 100 of me. There could be 1,000 of me. There could be, 100 Shoni Shimmels. There could be 100, whatever. And that's so, but to get to that level, to get that recognition, you have to have a support system. We never do it by ourselves. I'm not here because I pursued everything I did and I left home and I did it by myself. No, I had a support system. And my parents at home and my family at home and the community that I've built in LA of other Native people that I know and other people that aren't Native. There's a support system there, and encouragement helps a lot. I think that the sky is the limit when you dream big and you believe in it. And I think that, we look at all the Native women who are running for Senate seats and Congress and governors and whatnot. Like, that's powerful. So they're making noise, right? So we have to support them and lift them up and hold them up high so everybody can hear what they have to say. And I think that, our voice matters and I think that as a community, I really, like you said, the respect for the elders, that's important. Respect for elders, the way I was taught, doesn't just mean be nice to them when you see them. It means go spend some time with them. And an elder, think about the elder, So, and for you young ones here, for you young ones, I've learned this from my own experience. These elders want to spend time with you, but they're not going to say, come spend time with me. They're waiting for you. They're waiting for you to go visit them. So take it upon yourself to go and show some respect by spending some time, giving some of your time, because the life experience that they carry, the wisdom, can help us in our journey, and to make the right choices. And I don't think, we always hear that thing of, we got to learn the hard way. You don't always have to learn the hard way. You can learn from somebody else's mistakes and somebody else's successes, right? So it's just about working together. Be a tribe, a tribe. So thank you for the question.
So we're going to take three more questions and wrap it up. All right, we got 3 people.
One right here.
There we go. All right.
Martin, Yawa, and Wopila for, again, coming to our community to share your time with us this evening. In regards to Native fashion, I follow you quite a bit in your work with Bethany Yellowtail. And as Native people, we've always considered fashion as a part of our story, and we've used that platform to tell our story as an art form. And if you could just tell us briefly about your work and your continued work with Bethany and what you see for yourself as a model for her line in the future.
Yeah, I'm not really doing too much modeling anymore. I'm more focused on the film and stuff. But Bethany's amazing, and I've known Beth. It's funny because she used to be my roommate actually at one point, and she's my sister. Bethany's my sister, and I started out she was one of my biggest supporters, one of my biggest, really, she's a sister, and she just encouraged me to do what I'm doing now. And she always believed in me, and I believed in her. And she was, just when she was working corporate before she started her line, right? And then when she started her line, and watching her develop and get, new opportunities, and being able to help with that, doing some modeling that got some big press. She's had videos out there that have got millions of views, and I was in them. So, that helps me with, what I'm doing, but also, we have that relationship where we work together, and it's just amazing to see her doing it. She's been in Vogue, she's been in, People magazine, she's been in so many, she's really doing it. She's been at New York Fashion Week, she's really doing it. And that's amazing because her work is, her patterns and everything are inspired by her tribes. And I think that's beautiful. So, I'd love to see more of it. I want to see, I always tell people, if you're thinking about acting, pursue it, even if it doesn't work out. People always, it's something that is seems so unrealistic. Okay, it's unrealistic if you just want it and you think you're going to manifest it by just wanting it. And you don't get things done by wanting them. And the young people that we have that talk about manifesting these things or manifesting these realities, that they got the idea mixed up that by manifesting, I'm just going to want this thing and just, I'm going to want it so bad that it's going to come to me and the universe is going to materialize it in front of me. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to put in the work. You have to do the work. You have to start at the bottom of the ladder and work your way up. And I think that whatever it is that you want to do, whether it be fashion or film or doesn't even have to be the arts or media, it can be school, whatever it is that you want to do or whatever idea you have. I've seen people start organizations out of nothing, so it's just having the power of belief in something and then putting one foot in front of the other, doing the work, doing the groundwork, right? A lot of people want to skip that part, right? You can't skip that part. You just got to do the work. And I think that, we're capable people and we have amazing ideas and we should share that with the world, share with people who you are, what you believe in. Yeah, inspirational, man.
Hey, Martin, thank you for coming out. We all appreciate it. So my question is around the topic of Native identity. For me personally, I knew that I was Native American before I came to college, but I didn't actually know what it meant to be Native American until after I was in college and I had the opportunity to learn more about it. I know you had a lot of experience working around Indian country, more specifically with our youth. And a lot of times they don't have the option of either being a dancer in a powwow, having that native cultural background to learn more about their own identity as Native Americans. So I wanted to know what would be some suggestions from yourself as far as helping instill that sense of Native identity within our youth.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, how can we instill that sense of Native identity in our youth? Obviously, the culture, participation. Culture requires active participation, and I think we can, no matter where you're at in your life, you can participate. But I also think that, when we look at our tribes and our tribal names and what they mean, like I'm Tlingit, that means not the four-leggeds, it means the people, right? You look at Dene, it means the people. Lakota, the people. Haudenosaunee, like Kanien'kehá:ka, that's the people, right? So so we're human beings first, right? Our tribe is just our filter, right? That's who that's our identity. But before that, we're human beings. So I think instilling in the youth these values of the culture that are universal, and that's, to me, the most important. You carry these values, you're honoring your ancestors by living by these values and how we treat each other and how we work together, and also studying your ancestry and your history. Learn what happened to your people. Learn what happened to learn about the people who did it to them. Right? Like you get to learn the history to understand the experience, and kind of. By doing that, it'll teach you a lot about why you process things the way that you do, right? So, but, you know, I think you should feel secure in who you are, just knowing that that experience is in you, and by being a good person. And the rest is just, you know, spend some time with the elders. That's a traditional value, you know. Spend some time with the youth, and look for cultural activities to participate in, and you know, that helps give you a sense of security in yourself. It has for me anyways, you know. So you know, I never, like, for example, I'll tell you a story. I come from Yakutat, which means the place where the canoe rests, and we have a canoe culture, a canoe society, which we've used for thousands of years. We used to travel all the way to the southern tip of Mexico and Hawaii and all these places and navigate by the stars. You know, we really had 100-foot canoes that could man 70 people, and they would be gone on journeys for like 2-3 years sometimes. And so there's a lot of symbolism in that for me. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm in LA right now. I'm doing what I'm doing. That's my canoe journey. But also, you know, I never got in a canoe until I was 28. You know, so that the very simple act of doing the same motion, of being in a canoe, singing tribal songs while we're paddling, was a very defining moment in my life, because I was participating in what my ancestors did, and that I connected with that so deeply that I felt like, okay, I'm healing something, and this canoe and the spirit of this canoe is pulling negativity out of me, and I'm getting rid of it forever. I didn't even know it was there, right? I didn't even know it was there. So you're like the genetic experience is in you. It's in that memory, your blood contains a memory, and when you do things that participating in the culture, you're activating that memory. Your spirit, your body remembers. You feel that. You feel it. That's why we connect to it. That's why we identify with the bad things that happen to our people, whether it be the genocide or slavery or whatever it may be. We care about that, and it bothers us because that experience is in us. So, and it's activating something. It's activating. So that's the thing, is if we only think about the tragedy, we're just going to see ourselves as tragic, and we're activating that trauma, right? Think about the love and the healing that we had to go through to get to where we're at today. Think about the love that we had the love of a mother who lost everything and still has the power to love. Like that, that's in us too, you know? So we can activate that and focus on that, and not always focus on, we heal that by focusing on the good. We heal the bad by focusing on the good. So we don't just need to focus on the bad all the time and be sad about it. I mean, you know, there's a lot of work that we can do on ourselves, and that, you know, the energy will emanate from us and filter out to the people. So that's how I see it.
Hi.
Hello.
Since, like, my question is, in 2018, we're seeing a lot more of representation with people of color. And I was wondering, since we don't see a lot of Native American actors a lot, do you consider yourself to be a Native American? Would you consider yourself to ever pursue Native American directing? Sorry, nervous. To be a Native American director so you can get that representation out. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I think about it. Actually, you know, in 2011, I applied to film school at Seattle University, and actually had an offer for a full ride to go there. And then I also applied and toured Santa Fe University of Art and Design. And as a religion, what I wanted to do is be a director. But, you know, I had some encouragement from people that I met along the way that, no, you should act. And I'd already studied acting a little bit, so I'm like, yeah, okay, well, maybe I'll try it, you know. And you know, while I'm on set, I can study and learn things about directing. I don't necessarily need to go to school for it. But yeah, I would love to tell. There's a lot of stories I would love to tell. You know, Jim Thorpe is one of them. That's why I'm not just acting in it, but I'm executive producing it as well. So I have some creative control over what's going to be, you know, like they were looking for a writer. I got them to hire Sterling Harjo, who's Muskogee Creek and Seminole. And he's one of our best writers. In my opinion, he's our best writer. So it was very important for me to tell this story. Okay, we're going to tell this story, right? We can have people that help us push it along, but we're telling our version of this story. And I think that, you know, that Jim deserves that. So, yeah, I'm working on it.
All right,
you.
so we got one more question right here.
Hi, my name's Vincia. I wanted to ask you about children that are multicultural in your tribe or just in any tribe. So my dad's Native American, but my mother's African American. And our children that are multicultural, do they have the same rights to participate in cultural events as children that aren't?
Well,
Even if they turn out too light or if they're too dark to be considered that race?
that's tough. I wish it wasn't like that. Because I have family that's multicultural. My partner is multicultural. Her mom's Native and her dad's African American, right? And my cousin who I grew up with, my best friend who's also my cousin, is half black and half Native. And so he knows the culture and he participates, and he's one of the best dancers. He does the hardest work. He goes and shovels driveways for the elders, but he's still not Indian enough for some people. And to the black community in Fairbanks, he's not black enough for them, right? So that goes back to how we treat each other, right? Like, if somebody has that in them and that's their lineage and they want to participate, then you should let them. Because that, you know, like, none of us own the culture. You don't get to be the gatekeeper of who's Indian and who's not, right? We don't own it. We're a part of it. We belong to it. The earth is not ours, we're its people, right? So we have to look at that and understand that, okay, well, you know, back to the Columbus thing. When they showed up, we treated them with respect. They told us about their God, we believed them. We told them about ours, they didn't believe us, right? So but we taught them, and we cared about them as people, and we shared. So that's something I don't think we should ever get away from, regardless of the experience. Don't let that negative experience dim your light. Continue to share, continue to express, and you know, hopefully it's not. Don't ever let that thing feel like it's your fault or less of a person, because that's not your fault, and you're not less of a person because you're multicultural. It's a beautiful thing, and the people that are preventing you from participating, well, that's their own insecurity, right? Like, and that's something that they have to deal with down the road. Otherwise, they're just going to be unhappy, you know. Like, I see that everywhere I go, you know, and it's like somebody who's like me. I'm intertribal, right? Like, I got 3 different tribes, and I'm also French and Irish and some German, but you know what? Nobody ever gave me crap about having white blood, you know. But I see my cousin, and they give him crap about having being part African American, and that's unfair, you know. And so, and he doesn't. And I see him, and he's one of the strongest people I know, because he doesn't let that. It's like, you know. It just slides right off of him, and I think that, you know, when you have an understanding, you know who you are, you know what's in you, you know what you believe in, you're living these values, believe in that, you know, because you know, you're going to see, and people will accept you, and the ones who are living by those values are going to accept you, you know, but don't let that get you down. That's something that, you know, a lot of people deal with, and I think that that's a necessary part of our evolution that we have to deal with and move forward as human beings, and understand. Look at our tribal reality. Look at who we are as a tribe. What it means to be a tribe. Like, we're the people, you know. So, you know, I'm sorry you have to go through that, but, you know, I hope it changes.
Beautiful night, ladies and gentlemen. I want to share one last thing with Martin. So what I wanted him to understand, because he was concerned that we had a small crowd tonight, what he considered a small crowd. And I explained to him what we've gone through, and we were even sure if we were going to be able to do this tonight. And he wanted to make the kind of impression that made thousands of people come out. And I want him to understand it's not how many come out, it's who comes out. So
yes. And whether there's, you know, a small group or a big group, I'm thankful to be here either way, and I'm happy to be here and to be able to interact with you guys. It's you know, I really have enjoyed my time here, and you know, y'all taking care of me real well, and I appreciate that a lot. You know.
Thank you very much, Martin.
Appreciate it.